When you first hear the name Labubu, your mind probably doesn't jump straight to money, finance, or investment strategy. Instead, you picture a small, strange, and slightly creepy plush figure with huge eyes and an impish smile. And honestly, you'd be right. Labubu is exactly that, a quirky toy designed by Hong Kong illustrator and artist Kasing Lung, who built his career creating imaginative, slightly mischievous characters inspired by folklore and fairy tales. But here's the twist: what started as a creative project has become a financial phenomenon. Labubu isn't just a toy, it's a symbol of how culture, branding, and scarcity can create an entirely new type of asset. Now, before we talk about whether Labubu is a passing trend or a long-term investment, let's rewind for a second. Kasing Lung didn't set out to create a Wall Street-friendly plushie. He was an illustrator who spent years drawing whimsical, childlike characters, creatures that lived in a world called the monsters. Labubu was one of those creations, and thanks to a collaboration with Pop Mart, a Chinese art toy giant, it moved from sketches to physical collectibles. The partnership was explosive. Pop Mart had the infrastructure to mass-produce and market Labubu, while Kasing Lung had the creative vision. The result? A toy that captured not only the imaginations of fans but also the wallets of investors, and this is where things start to get interesting. Pop Mart didn't market Labubu like a regular toy. Instead, they leaned hard into the idea of scarcity. Limited runs, seasonal drops, blind boxes, you name it. Buying a Labubu isn't like grabbing a Barbie doll at Walmart. It's an event. You never quite know what you're going to get, and that little hit of uncertainty fuels both excitement and frustration. If you're lucky, you pull a rare figure worth hundreds. If not, you've still got a piece of the brand. That structure, exclusivity mixed with chance, is what makes Labubu such a hot commodity. From a financial perspective, Labubu operates almost like a micro version of the stock market. The value of each figure isn't determined by what it costs to produce but by what the community is willing to pay. And believe me, they're willing to pay a lot. A toy that retails for $12 can resell for $200, $500, sometimes even close to $1,000 depending on rarity. That's a return that makes Bitcoin investors look twice. It's no surprise, then, that Pop Mart's 2020 IPO in Hong Kong was oversubscribed over 100 times. Investors saw the writing on the wall. This wasn't just a cute toy, it was a money-making cultural machine. But here's the big question: is Labubu just another Beanie Babies situation waiting to collapse, or could it actually evolve into a long-term investment class like fine art, watches, or even luxury handbags? On one hand, history is littered with collectible fads. Beanie Babies in the 90s were hyped as the next big thing, and people genuinely believed they'd pay for college tuition one day. Instead, most of them ended up in dusty boxes at garage sales. The same story has repeated with Pogs, fidget spinners, and even certain Funko Pops. Hype builds, scarcity drives prices up, and then eventually, people lose interest. The bubble bursts. It's simple supply and demand, mixed with cultural attention spans that are shorter than ever. If Labubu follows that same pattern, then yes, it's destined to fade into obscurity once the hype cools down. On the other hand, Labubu has some qualities that make it different. First, the creator's story matters. Kasing Lung isn't just pumping out toys, he's crafting a universe of characters with unique personalities and lore. That makes Labubu less like a generic plushie and more like an art piece. And art has always had long-term staying power. Look at how collectibles tied to iconic creators, think Takashi Murakami or KAWS, have held their value. There's an authenticity in creator-driven art toys that mass-market fads often lack. Second, the structure of Pop Mart's business is designed for longevity. Unlike Beanie Babies, which relied on uncontrolled speculation, Pop Mart is carefully managing supply, cultivating a dedicated global fan base, and positioning Labubu within the broader designer toy movement. This isn't just a plush you find in the checkout aisle. It's marketed more like luxury streetwear, drops, exclusives, and collaborations. And if history tells us anything, streetwear and luxury culture can sustain hype for decades. Third, Labubu is thriving in the digital age. The resale market for collectibles is now global, accessible, and supported by platforms like StockX, eBay, and even specialized toy marketplaces. In other words, there's infrastructure to sustain the secondary market, something Beanie Babies never had. Combine that with social media, where showing off your collection is part of the flex culture, and you've got a recipe for Labubu to last much longer than a typical fad. Still, risks remain. Scalpers and resellers create frustration in the community, sometimes pushing genuine fans away. The volatility of resale prices makes Labubu more of a speculative gamble than a stable investment. And as with all cultural trends, attention can shift overnight. If people get bored, all that resale value could evaporate. Collectors banking on Labubu as their retirement plan might end up sorely disappointed. So, is Labubu a trend that will fade, or a long-term investment? The truth is, it's probably a bit of both. For most people, Labubu will remain a cultural trend, one that burns bright for a few years before dimming. But for serious collectors and investors who choose carefully, picking the rarest editions, focusing on pieces tied closely to Kasing Lung's artistic vision, Labubu could become a long-lasting asset. Think of it like art investing. The average print might not appreciate much, but the right canvas by the right artist can hold or even increase its value for decades. At the end of the day, Labubu is teaching us a fascinating lesson about money. Value isn't always tied to function. Sometimes, it's tied to story, emotion, and community. And that means even a mischievous little plush toy can hold financial weight. Should you invest in Labubu? Maybe, if you love it. If it brings you joy, then it's worth something already. But if you're buying purely to get rich, be careful. The line between a timeless collectible and a financial bubble is razor thin. For now, though, Labubu stands as a reminder that in our modern economy, attention equals money. And right now, attention is laser-focused on a wide-eyed gremlin with a cheeky smile. Whether it remains a cultural icon or becomes tomorrow's thrift store relic, that's the million-dollar question.